I forgot the intro. Hold on. Hello and welcome to Gaming Knuckleheads Talk. I don't want to hear it from the two of you. It's okay to hear it from them, the audience. You two, not a word. Anyway, today we've got a very flighty, very loaded, very damn those streetlights are bright topic. It's very touchy. It's very picky. And it's going to carry a lot of opinion, but this is a thing that needs to be talked about. And before anyone jumps into the comments post-stream or jumps into the chat during the live, why don't they just fire him? Our resident expert on Japanese traditions and culture will take it away and explain why Miyamoto cannot be fired. Matt?
Well, it's not that he can't be fired. It's just that usually in they just have lots of job security over there, so it's not easy to just up and fire somebody for whatever reason.
What you told me specifically the first time we discussed this, like months or a couple of years back, was it's like got a traditional thing where a person in his particular position on the corporate ladder is a position for life. Yeah, that's like, I mean, that's all well and good, but we're talking about the exposing of the problems created at Nintendo by the one, the only Shigeru Miyamoto. Like, if he's doing stuff that is detrimental to the company, they really should consider saying, no matter what our traditions say, we need to focus on the bottom line. And if he ends up doing something that's a threat to the bottom line, are they just going to default to, well, it's a position for life, so if he screws us and bankrupts us, oh well. Sounds a bit counterproductive to the whole idea of capitalism and business, if you ask me. But I'm not an entrepreneur, so what do I know? I'm also not Japanese, so what do I know? But, you know. But, yeah, I mean, was a thing that was popping on my mind. It'll come to me. Business, bottom line, screwing people. Well, I tried to figure out what that stray thought was. I'm going to say a lot of what we're going to be discussing tonight can be traced back to things he's said and done. We'll talk about some YouTubers and whatnot, but other things are more inferences that we can draw from his behavior. And I remember what the thought was. Now, don't get me wrong on saying that I'm some kind of Nintendo hater who just plays Nintendo because irony or something. Miyamoto did at one point have positive influence in the company, but as time went on and the company became more successful, he succumbed to what a lot of big corporate suits, especially non-CEO people who still have more cushier jobs in the corporate business sphere, fall to, and that is corporate greed. There was a time where Miyamoto would say something like, a rushed game is bad, but a delay is forever bad, but a delayed game is eventually good. Wise words, yes? Literally out the fucking window. Like, he has gone from being the wise man of the company to arrogant douchebag. And we're going to start by framing a question that was posed in a video. And the video was more of a video essay, but and I don't know if it's still up or not, because It's been 8 years since he's appeared in my feed. But the YouTuber named Bryhard did a video titled, "Is Miyamoto a Detriment to Nintendo?" And there's actually two very interesting things he posed in that video. The first was a story he told about the development of the Wind Waker. And the Wind Waker might have been a completely different game if it hadn't been for Aonuma and what he did. And this was retaliation against something that Miyamoto did to him. But a story that Bryhard told in this video was more or less that apparently Miyamoto got into Aonuma's computer one night after hours and made some changes to the programming of Wind Waker. Because he was like, oh, well, Aonuma may be in charge of Zelda, but he's not doing it right. He's not doing the game right. Aonuma saw the changes the next day, changed them back, and really laid into Miyamoto about that. Now, as to whether or not that story is true, I have no idea where the guy heard it from or what sources he had. I'd have to look at the video again, but that's really a big red flag that is going to come into play about something that I'm going to say about Miyamoto that I hold to be the whole honest truth. And until Furukawa does something completely wrong, nobody can disprove it. And the other thing that Brian posed and interesting is, and a lot of people like, well, it's more of a financial and a fan-based thing, to which I say, bullshit. If F-Zero is not a very popular game, well, Metroid's not very popular in Japan. Why the hell are they still making Metroid games? But the reason, because this is a fact, the reason that we don't get new F-Zeros, the games can no longer be innovated. That is, and there's a few franchises that, of course, Nintendo won't touch in terms of killing them off. Because if they killed off big franchises like Mario, Zelda, and Pokemon because of Miyamoto's logic, they would be stuck to lesser, smaller, newer IPs or IPs that have barely had any titles like Luigi's Mansion, But Miyamoto has a very strict philosophy. And that very strict philosophy is if a franchise can no longer be innovated, it must be killed off. It has nothing to do with the lack of popularity of F-Zero or game sales. Because, Brent, you're the Metroid expert here. Tell me if I'm wrong, but Metroid doesn't sell
at least over in
much
Japan,
as other
yes.
big Nintendo IPs, correct? And you'd say a rough estimate sales figures could total a little bit more, if not close to the ballpark that F-Zero sells?
I don't know. Maybe?
Put it to you this way. If F-Zero is a money hemorrhager and Mario is a money printer, the scale goes from money printer, money maker, money hemorrhager with little bits in between. Where on the scale between those three major points does Metroid fall? On Moneymaker, on Money Printer,
probably either on
Moneymaker
or somewhere in between. Because again, as I said, it's not as popular over in Japan, but it is very popular in the West. So it definitely fall into Moneymaker or somewhere just a bit below that, but definitely not to Money Hemorrhager. Yeah.
So below Moneymaker, but above Money Hemorrhager. Yeah. So it does still get lower than expected sales, and not just on a worldwide scale, on a Western scale as well. So why aren't they killing it off the way they killed off F-Zero? Because Metroid keeps innovating. That's why. If Metroid stopped innovating, you know damn well that Miyamoto would have the plug pulled. And that brings me to what I'm going to say. And we're going to talk about why I say what I'm about to say. Shintaro Furukawa is a figurehead. He's not actually running the company. And And, well, the proof really comes from some YouTube videos, so you can argue it's circumstantial. I'm about to prove that Shigeru Miyamoto is the real CEO. And Brent, as the resident actually has a day job, I'm going to be posing you a question based off what I'm about to share. So in 2018, when a lot of people were bitching about how unappealing Nintendo Switch Online was, around December of that year, Review Tech USA put out a video, and he talked about a quote made by Furukawa. I don't remember the exact extent of the quote, so I'm mostly paraphrasing, but Furukawa basically said that Nintendo Switch Online was not making the money they expected. In fact, the fact that people were only buying like short bursts of like a month-long subscription and then just letting it expire and not renewing it, that they were not making any money off of Nintendo Switch Online, and Furukawa wanted the company to improve upon the service. Cut to 2 months later, February 2019, and I don't know how he got a hold of this because I don't know if this is public information, but Nintendo Prime showed the minutes and the notes from the early 2019 Nintendo investors meeting. Investors spoke to Miyamoto directly and asked him to expound upon what Furukawa had said. What are you planning on doing to improve the Nintendo Switch Online so it makes more money?
I already know.
Can either of you guess what Miyamoto's response was?
I don't know.
Matt? We have no plans at this time to improve upon Nintendo Switch Online. It is perfect as it is. I'm sorry, did not 2 months ago your boss say the complete opposite? Your boss, the CEO of the company. Brent, if your boss, not your direct supervisor, your actual boss, the person who runs your company, if he came to you and your department and said, we need to do this for this big governmental client. This big governmental client has investors. They're going to be coming around and asking some questions. And they say to you, Mr. Brent, what are you planning on doing to make good on what your boss wants you to do? And you say, we don't plan to do anything at all, despite the fact that it was a direct order from your boss, the same way it was a direct order from Furukawa. What would your boss do?
I'm just trying to think in like every single worst case scenario possible that's before fired. So give me a second. I know.
I mean, that is the answer we're looking for, but still.
Reprimandation at best, and by that I mean get off work, fired at worst.
And how many of those things did Furukawa do to Miyamoto? Exactly. So wait, you basically disobeyed a direct order from not just your boss, the highest person on the totem pole. And he didn't even tell you, I'm the boss, what I say go, listen to what I say. This means one of two things. One, Miyamoto is actually running the company, but because he said he never wanted to run the company, he had Furukawa installed as a figurehead. Or two, Furukawa is extremely incompetent and does not know how to run a company. And considering the number of successes mixed in with major failures Nintendo's had over the years, I don't think the company is stupid enough to hire an incompetent boob who doesn't know what he's doing to be the CEO. Which means there's no way Furukawa is genuinely the legitimate CEO of the company. Because if he was, I don't care if Japanese tradition says Miyamoto has that position for life. Furukawa still would have brought a hammer down on him. And one thing that you'll notice is when do people start saying that Nintendo has gone downhill in quality? I'll give you a hint. Was it before
Definitely
or after
after.
a certain somebody died? that brings me to a very, very important piece of the puzzle as to why, yes, Bryhard, Shigeru Miyamoto is a detriment to Nintendo and should be removed from the company. Satoru Iwata was much more versed at CEOing than Furukawa is. I mean, think about it. Why is it that after he died, people said that Nintendo started going downhill in terms of quality? And why is it that people are criticizing games like Mario Strikers Battle League, Mario Tennis Aces, and Mario Golf Super Rush as unfinished, lazy, incompetent cash grabs? The way that they handled those 3 games, would Iwata have allowed that? Exactly. But Furukawa allowed it simply because Miyamoto told the teams that the games were perfect as they were. Why isn't anybody keeping him in check if he's not the CEO? If he's so good for the company, why is he letting games that get heavily criticized as lazy, unfinished, and don't live up to Nintendo's seal of quality? Why are games like that releasing? And why wouldn't those 3 games have released in the state they did under Iwata's reign? You know? I mean, the fanboys can argue and they can suck on Miyamoto's dick and drink his cum all they want, you know? They can. I'm not going to stop them. But the fact of the matter is that it's basically blind hero worship. You think that a person can do no wrong even if they do. It's like, I do love Nintendo, and they do put out some good games. I haven't gotten super far in it because I'm waiting to find out whether, with the way that the levels are structured, I'm making sure that I can't, like, some of the collectibles are not permanently missable. But I'm enjoying Princess Peach Showtime. I agree with Dimitri on his take that a lot of the reason that a lot of people are disliking the game is because it doesn't have an actual identity. On one hand, at its core, it's an action-adventure game, but each level practically encompasses a completely different genre that you can't really give the game a genre, and that I think he's right in the money when he says that's why people don't like it. But it's a very fun game. I completed the first 2 levels that were included in the demo, the sword fighter stage, the patissiere stage, and I also completed the ninja stage. All I got to do on this current set of levels is the cowboy stage, but in the ninja stage, I missed one of the sparkles, and I missed 2 of them because the cookie baking minigame in patissiere is a pain in the ass. And I don't want to advance the story, but it's like Sword 1, Chef's Hat 1, Ninja Star 1, no other levels. Does that mean that those levels are going to disappear and be completely unplayable when the story advances? And if so, am I going to miss out on any good or story-based rewards for not 100%ing all the sparkles in each level? So it's like, I'm waiting for people on Game FAQs to answer those questions for me, but it's like, it's a fun game. I'm enjoying it. Nintendo does do good things. And I'm not just bashing on Miyamoto for the sake of, oh, it's Miyamoto, it's fun to hit. No, the man has literally shown that as the company has grown more and more successful and practically become a dominating force in the video game world, he's become more arrogant and more consumed with greed, perfectionism, and egotistical praise. I can tell you right now, if Miyamoto was fired tomorrow, in the next few years, we would be seeing a completely different Nintendo. Assuming that with Miyamoto gone, Furukawa's incompetency didn't run the company into the ground and shut their doors. Yeah. But that's a lot of the major stuff, out of the way. There's more that we can bring up, and I know you told me that you're not too well versed in some of the more negative misgivings at Nintendo, Matt. But Brent, what are some thoughts you have? see if we can give Matt some ideas on maybe he can come up with some stuff that he personally likes to share.
Truth be told, not really too much affected by most of the other stuff, but I do agree with like one particular thing. Coming up with like, ways to make sure that games don't become stale or too repetitive isn't a bad thing, but it shouldn't be a necessity. It should be more something once you realize it's starting to get stale, and then you should try doing something new. Not every game.
Yeah, because one thing that I've noticed about the F-Zero community, if you exclude F-Zero 99 and say that it doesn't count, they don't care if the franchise can't be innovated. It's like with Mario Kart. For the most part, even though the innovations are minor, people don't really care about stuff outside of like the new tracks. What are the new characters, Is that not all F-Zero needs? Some classic machines returning, some new machines coming in, a good mixed bag of different tracks. Is that not what?
Well, I mean, I think it needs to
be successful.
Gradually evolve, in my opinion, because I played like, all the F-Zero games, but I don't think it should be shoved into the abyss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, outside of F-Zero 99, it has been, And it's based off the fact that they weren't innovating every game, but even people don't care that the game's not innovating. I mean, some people like yourself might find it stale, but other people aren't ready to find it stale because they think that it's just a fun, great game. And the closest thing we have is made by a German developer that for some reason or another, I have no clue if it's a German word or a Japanese word. I have to look it up, but I know the developer is German because I talked about them with a friend once, and I was like, I mean, they seem like one of the more uppity Japanese companies. Dude, that's a German company. What the fuck? But Fast RMX by a German company called Shinen. That's SHIN''EN.
Japanese.
Does that sound like a German word or a Japanese word to you guys? So if you don't know the company, you'd think they were a Japanese company. But I mean, Fast RMX, and we played it on the channel. Brett and I played a little bit of the game on the channel. It's basically like F-Zero. It's got hover machines. I mean, you can't like crash and burn, but you can crash and respawn from the point where you crash, It's high octane, it's boost heavy. Like, I know that you have to like collect like a boost meter, but it's like take the boost meter from F-Zero and make it that like you're constantly filling your boost meter the way Sonic would in modern boost gameplay. It's basically F-Zero amped up. And it's a lot of fun. It's a port of a Wii U game that was called Fast Racing Neo that had its name changed to Fast RMX when it was ported. A lot of people like to complain that, or at least what I've seen online, that the CPU cheats and reaches speeds that human players are incapable of reaching. But I've seen people manage to beat like the lowest engine class completely. So CPUs gaining abnormal speed, I think, is more of a later issue than in subsonic level. Yeah, but it's a lot of fun, and it's the closest thing outside of 99, which is online only, which is a damn shame. They should have taken a page from Namco and made an offline with CPUs mode. I can still play Pac-Man 99 even though it's offline because the offline mode.
I recently have been playing, speaking of Namco, been playing Tekken 8, and it has an offline mode too. So.
Ooh. Yeah, but it's also an arcade-style fighting game. I would expect it to. I'm saying like these 99 Battle Royale games that have been popularized through like Tetris 99 and whatnot. Everything made by Nintendo proper is online only with a cutoff date, but the 199 game that's not first party, and I know Tetris is technically made by the Tetris company, but let's face it, 99 was all Nintendo. That was all first party Nintendo, you know? But it's like Pac-Man 99, you cannot play online anymore, but you can still play the game. When they shut down F-Zero 99, you're never going to get to play it again because there's no offline mode. So, you know, until 99 goes offline, it's like all you have is Fast RMX now. It's fun, but how long until it gets stale? As much as I like revisiting the Johto region, like Gold, Silver, Crystal, Heart Gold, Soul Silver,
yeah,
I do need to play other Pokemon games too, yeah? Less playing Johto for the 1,000,010th time becomes too repetitive. Like, yeah, but, you know, I still think Johto is the best region. Those are all going to be my all-time favorite games. I want to see another remake with 9th gen features. Like, Whitney's the normal type user, but somehow she sticks a Clefairy in there, giving you a damn good reason to get your Zubat to learn those poison moves quickly. She's got that one goddamn fairy right there. Yeah. I mean, if we were talking about Pokemon, one thing I would say to all the people who complain about Whitney, I can never beat Whitney. Go get the Machop from the in-game trade in Goldenrod City, you idiots. One of my last playthroughs, I had the Machop roughly between levels 22 and 25. Guess what one Karate Chop did to Miltank? The foe's Miltank fainted. You just beat Whitney. Wow, you meanie. I'm sorry, but anyone who says that Whitney is too hard because of Miltank's rollout and the lack of fighting type Pokemon and fighting type moves, and refuses to acknowledge the Machop trade in the Goldenrod department store is an idiot. Anyone who says that they're not that the trade shouldn't be valid because it's a Pokemon you get in a trade from a CPU and not competitively viable. Well, the 4th generation, there's a little bit of bit to that. In the 2nd generation, you're not an idiot. You're just on drugs. Stick kicking tanks. Sometimes the RNG might hate you with the moves, and you might end up dealing with a couple of extra hits. Like in my most recent Heart Gold playthrough, Whitney's Miltank was spamming Stomp because I was one level below Miltank because I was trying to raise other members of my main team, but I got through the battle without losing Machop. Took a little bit longer, but going further back in a classic era Game Boy style playthrough, the in-game Machop, when trained to the proper level, as long as you don't go over the level, like you can get it up to level 28, evolve it into a Machoke, it'll still obey you. Just make sure it doesn't pass level 30, you know? But yeah. It's like, that's what I'd have to say to all the people who take issue with Whitney. Yeah, it's a challenge, and there are a lot of flaws with the Johto region. But again, it goes back to like, games can get stale. And as much as I love Fast RMX, I played it way too much back in the early days to the point where I tend to more often just play it with friends now. Rather than actually sitting down and actually playing it in my spare time. In fact, I think it's only on my Switch at the moment, not on my Switch Lite. Like, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. But yeah, I mean, and I agree with both of you. Like, innovation is good, but there is such a thing as overdoing it, and Miyamoto loves overdoing it. Oh, yeah. Even to the point where he's influenced other developers, like, and other people in charge of like first and second party projects. It's like, speaking of like bad influence, Giriam Red is a YouTuber, and he did this really cool video I watched where he was reading reviews from employees. No, Gizmo, you're not an employee. You're just a cute little ball of fur. He just comes in here meowing like, what's all the hubbub about here? It's Thursday night already. I think she can tell when it's Thursday night because she knows I'm in here with the lights off and the studio light on. Anyway, but this site is on the up and up because he basically explains, one, you have to be a citizen of Japan. Even if you were born there, if like you moved there from another country, you have to have citizenship. Two, you have to have some form of currently gainful employment. Three, you have to furnish proof that you currently or in the past have worked for the company you're reviewing. Now, I didn't get to the part about Ilka, but I did hear some of the comments about Game Freak. And I took a brief pause because I wanted to see how many of the diehard Pokemon fanboys were trying to rag on Game Freak employees, like, how dare you talk about the company that way? And I noticed a very interesting takeaway from when he read the Ilka comments. Here's what the takeaway from most of the people commenting on his video was. So in other words, Junichi Masuda made Ilka purposefully make a bad remake of Diamond and Pearl. That's the takeaway from the comments. What does that sound like the Ilka employees were saying to you two? Remember, the takeaway from the commenters was, so Masuda forced them to sabotage the game. What do you think the people at Ilka were saying?
Pretty much the same thing.
That also proves that even though people say, you can't blame Masuda because Ilka made the games, the point is, Ilka was ordered to do things, even if they didn't agree with them. Masuda oversaw the project. He told them what they could and couldn't do. So the direct failure of Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl falls squarely on Masuda's shoulders. But here's something interesting to think about. And correct me if I'm wrong, you two, and anyone in the comments or chat, correct me if I'm wrong as well, if these two can't. Doesn't Game Freak have their office in Nintendo's headquarter building in Kyoto?
Yeah.
So if Ilka also has an office there, wouldn't somebody at Nintendo have possibly overheard Masuda ordering them to make a bad quality game? If so, why is the seal of quality on the games? If it's a game that does not meet Nintendo's standard for the seal of quality, why was it allowed to release besides it's Pokemon? Because if that's the only reason, then you could literally make a game called A Dog's Life, and it could literally just be a looping GIF of a dog taking a shit. And that's all that you would need to get the seal of quality on that game. Oh, I'm sorry, that game, because it's not a game, you know? Obviously, somebody at Nintendo knew that the game did not meet the standards of seal of quality and said, put it on there anyway. And there's only one person I can think of who would do something like that. And he's in the title of this stream. Yeah. And think about this. Let me double check to see if it's still mostly negative. Yep, we've reached the Wikipedia time. All right, here we go. Defense. Mixed. I'm assuming mixed critical reception means mostly bad.
It means somewhere in between.
Yeah. Well, prior to the mixed critical reception, Star Fox Zero mostly got negative reviews. And Polygon, despite the fact that they're very activist heavy, published a very interesting article around the time that Star Fox Zero was being raked over the coals. And they were talking about what Miyamoto had to say about all the negative reviews. It's a good game. It's just being disrespected by haters. So let me get this straight. A game that nobody but a handful of Star Fox fanboys liked was being disrespected because the controls were bad, the dual screen gimmick did not work in a way that benefited the player, and it was basically just a rehash of Star Fox 64, which was already a rehash of Star Fox on the Super Nintendo, but with additional missions. Because each path in Star Fox on the Super Nintendo had the exact same missions, just in different sectors. Whereas each of the missions in Star Fox 64 was unique when you went down a different path.
No, there were different missions in each different path on the Super Nintendo.
And I recall seeing a few alternate paths that were exactly the same as the base one.
They mostly just had like similar assets, but not the same thing. Like it's barely like it's like basically using similar assets, but not like the same like missions.
Well, that just makes it worse because, like I said, Zero's story was a rehash of 64, and 64 was a rehash of the first game. So you're literally remaking the Super Nintendo original that was already remade on the N64, and you're making it with bad gimmicks, like the dual screen aspect. Like I think it was our friend Devin. It was somebody we knew who doesn't live in South Florida anymore. Either lives in Central Florida or moved out of town. I know Rachel and Tyler moved back to Connecticut. But yeah, it's like I saw a video from one of our friends back in the day. Slippy threatened to blow up the Great Fox because nobody on the Great Fox wanted to play with his really cool dual screen gamepad controls. And it was basically the idea of how you should treat it was basically like a mean-spirited, jokingly making fun of people who were trying to push, oh, it's a good game because it's a Nintendo product. Just because a product is a Nintendo product doesn't mean it's good. 2 words, Virtual Boy. That right there is a case for legalizing old school emulators for older systems, because I know I've heard that that people have managed to make the Virtual Boy emulators run in grayscale graphics. And I've seen some of the games. I've seen actual footage of original stuff, like when the Angry Video Game Nerd did his bit on the Virtual Boy was a bad console for 2 reasons. 1, no head strap. Why did history repeat itself with Labo? Don't ever let them try to make another dedicated VR system standalone, because you won't be able to put on the head strap. Because there won't be one, They have an aversion to head straps. They're fatally allergic. Anyway. And 2, much like with the R-Zone, the graphics did tend to cause a lot of people to get some headaches, eye strain. Like the red and black wireframe, it didn't work for Nintendo. It didn't work for Tiger. If people want to experience these games, the only way to do it without any sort of health-related issues is by currently illegal methods. The Virtual Boy was an epic failure that just didn't work because it was poorly implemented, and it was virtual reality before virtual reality was really ready outside of Hollywood. And it's like that right there. Legalize emulators of older systems that are no longer on the market. Write to your local Congress people. Be like, hey, we want to get older emulators here in America legalized. It's like, but the Virtual Boy, just because it's a Nintendo product doesn't mean it's good. The games look like fun, but I'm not dropping a couple $100,000 for something without a head strap that's going to give me eye strain at my old age. I'd rather emulate the games without the risk of being arrested and charged with piracy. But since emulation is, unless you're buying like an old school game like a virtual console type deal, actually downloading emulators and ROMs is considered illegal. I have no legal way to experience a virtual console unless I want to risk going blind.
Mm-hmm.
And yet there's probably a subsect out there who says anyone who says anything negative about the Virtual Boy is a hater. God knows Miyamoto probably says that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The man needs to go back to his roots. He needs to go back to being the man that used to believe in quality. Because Iwata, he was a man who didn't take shit from anybody. He commanded respect. I mean, look at Pokemon. Masuda never wanted Pokemon to be as well done as generations 3 through 5 were. The reason that he did, what we have now, that's what he wanted Ruby and Sapphire to be. He didn't want secret bases. He didn't want contests. He didn't want the underground. He didn't want all this cool side shit that you could do. He wanted plain Jane, base story, beat the game, small post-game narrative, complete the Pokedex. From there, it's just competitive battles with other people. That's all he wanted Pokemon to ever be. But Iwata interfered because thanks to what he did, saving Gold, Silver, and Crystal, he became an executive producer until Black 2, White 2. I think this was the time that he got his bile duct tumor diagnosis. I'm not sure when that diagnosis came in. Here's the only factoid I know. Sometime after Black 2 and White 2 came out, but before X and Y entered development, Iwata stepped down as executive producer because he wanted to focus on his CEO duties due to his health. So I think that's roughly around the time he got the notification from his doctor that he had the bile duct tumor. And I guess we all know what happened. I guess by the time he found out, it was too late to do anything about it. You know how a tumor can be operable, but if too much time passes, it's going to kill you no matter what?
Yeah. Well, practically anything could do that.
Yeah. True. But the point is, that's why people didn't say anything until the National Dex cut, mostly because they were happy with the ability to have all Pokemon. But believe it or not, after the National Dex cut was announced, people were like, well, I've been holding off on saying this, but now that I can't have every single Pokemon in my collection in a single game, I have to say it. The quality of the games went downhill after Black 2, White 2. X and Y were bad quality games, as every game that's followed since. Iwata's death and him stepping down from Pokemon as executive producer had very major negative ramifications for both Nintendo and Pokemon. And Miyamoto is pretty much... Let me put it this way. Furukawa says, here's something to think about. Even though the lawsuit was settled in Nintendo's favor, and now, according to Nintendo, you cannot claim Joy-Con drift even if your system does drift, because the judge ruled that there is no such thing as Joy-Con drift in arbitration, apparently. There's somebody in Nintendo who actually says the complete opposite, but can't do anything about it, because once Miyamoto said, there is no such thing as Joy-Con drift, this man said, yes, sir, Mr. Miyamoto, you're the boss. Furukawa admitted that Joy-Con drift is real. He made a statement about it. And yet, he never got to push to force Nintendo to identify and fix the problem. Because Miyamoto interfered. Miyamoto told Nintendo of America's legal team to argue that Joy-Con drift was made up, despite mountains of evidence proving otherwise. Conclusive evidence, by the way. That Switch Lite video of that guy putting his Switch Lite down on the bed, not touching it, and Link moving around, that's about as open and shut that drift is real as you can get. And that was a fresh out-of-the-box system. He had literally just set it up and was starting up Breath of the Wild when it happened. and he showed it all.
Mhm.
So Miyamoto is causing problems because he's become arrogant. He no longer cares about what makes the company so great. All he cares about is the brand recognition and people praising him and everything the company does. God forbid he should ever say anything negative. They literally removed a guy named Haydox from their program when he gave a negative review of Star Fox Zero. And the reason they removed him was because he was telling lies about Nintendo products. He said, I don't like this game. My opinion of this game is that it is bad. If you like it, that is fine. But my opinion is I do not like this game. Apparently, your opinion is actually fact. If you say that your opinion of a game is that it's bad, according to Nintendo, you're spreading libel and slander and telling lies about the company because they don't make bad products ever, apparently. That should tell you everything you need to know about the company post Iwata's death and Miyamoto literally no longer being kept on a leash the way he used to be.
Mhm.
That's also why I would turn, if Nintendo came to me and said, we've seen you played a lot of Nintendo games, how would you like to be a part of the ambassador? I would say to the person who spoke to me, sorry, but I'm not about to kiss your ass. I know that if I give an opinion that is negative, you're going to accuse me of telling lies about the company and remove me from the program. I'd rather pay for my games and say whether or not I like them freely, because what you're doing is the equivalent of putting a gun to my head and threatening to pull the trigger if I don't say I don't. What you hate.
Sorry?
You hate.
That was made by Nintendo. I can't think of
Any
one.
game doesn't have to be made by Nintendo.
See, Mercenaries 2.
All right. Let's say that the company who made Mercenaries 2 offered to give you a free copy of the game, but you had to say that it was the greatest thing ever. Would you do that just to get a free game?
No.
Exactly. Matt, name a game you hate.
All right, just give me a moment. Let's see.
I feel like he's going over
Probably-
a long list.
Probably like the original Street Fighter.
Would you say positive things about the original Street Fighter if you were offered a free copy of the game? Or would you stand by your morals and say, my opinion matters like everyone else's?
Well, of course, stand by the morals.
Exactly. Nintendo wants you to abandon morals and ethics and believe that your opinion doesn't matter unless you're sucking their dicks. And that wasn't the case when Miyamoto was literally chained to his fucking leash. The keeper of his leash is either 6 feet under or sitting in an urn somewhere.
Mhm.
And his replacement didn't put a leash on Miyamoto. If Miyamoto was the same man he was in the heyday of the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, we wouldn't be having this particular podcast. We would be doing something completely different.
Mhm.
But it has to be said, you know, Nintendo is a good company. They make really fun, enjoyable games. I mean, how often do you see people playing together in person on a couch on an Xbox or PlayStation system? And no, Brent, Stefan playing a game or me playing a game or you playing a game while the other two of us make commentary doesn't count. How
I
often do
indeed
you
did.
see people actually doing multiplayer together on a non-Nintendo system? Very rarely to almost never?
Yeah.
Exactly. Nintendo still brings people together to play games in person, not just online where they can just disconnect if they're not having fun, you know, or if they're losing. People can actually come together in person, eat snacks, drink drinks, and play video games together. So Nintendo does do a lot of positive things. I'm not going to deny that. But I'm not just going to praise Miyamoto as a great person. All respect that I ever had for him when I was younger, I've lost as I've seen how corrupt he's become. is like a guy named Hot Diggity Demon who does a lot of animation. He made fun of Miyamoto's statement where Miyamoto's Joy-Cons drifted in the animation. He's like, even though Joy-Con drift is not real and it's all in my head, I'm going to throw these away and get a new pair. And this guy comes in and is like, whoa, wait, just use them. And, the animated Miyamoto kept coming up with excuses as to why he had to replace his Joy-Cons without admitting they were drifting. And it basically ended with, when I was a kid, I used to think you were cool. Mic drop, walk away. You just see Miyamoto toss the drifting Joy-Cons in the garbage can, select a new pair, and just look at them and make a very sad mix between Japanese and Italian accent, Mamma Mia. Because he'd just been called out in this animation. And that's how a lot of people these days feel. They used to love that Miyamoto was Mr. Nintendo. Now they're just like, can he please just retire and enjoy his senior years and let younger, fresher blood who wants to make good for the company take over? It's okay for him to say, it's time for me to retire. I know that I've made a lot of bad, arrogant, greedy decisions. It's okay for him to say the point of a business is to make money. But there's a reason phrases like pro-consumer and anti-consumer exist. Pro-consumer means that you're making money the smart way. Anti-consumer means you just want to make money, fuck it all.
Uh-huh.
If Miyamoto truly cares about Nintendo, he either needs to remember the man he used to be, or he needs to step aside and tell some people, don't make the same mistakes. He doesn't even have to make it public. He can literally say, he can make them sign a fucking NDA for all I care, but he needs to say, don't make the same mistakes I did. Don't let greed and arrogance consume you. Make sure that you make money, but make sure that the fans are making genuine positive reviews and not just kissing your ass because of brand recognition.
Mm-hmm.
But he's too arrogant to ever do that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Anyway, I know this has been particularly ranty, and I'm a little bit more versed in the subject than these two, but as usual, thank you all for tuning in, and tune in next time when we talk about something or things completely different. What are your thoughts on gray marketplaces? That's the topic I've been kicking around. And who knows, people? Maybe we'll turn the snafu that happened. Maybe we'll start with like a cold open from now on. Be like, with something, live, something witty.
Mm-hmm.
Let us know in the comments below if my accidentally forgetting to run the countdown before we started, if you'd like to see us experiment with cold opens before the countdown, or if don't be afraid to just say, yeah, done fucked up. Remember to start the countdown before you click go live next time. Let us know in the comments below what your thoughts on that are. Share some of your favorite positive moments about Nintendo and Miyamoto. Share some of your favorite negatives. Let's turn this into a discussion, but just remember, fanboys trying to cause trouble aside, please try to be respectful of our thoughts and our opinions, of other people's thoughts and other people's opinions. Because even if you disagree with us that Miyamoto is a detriment to Nintendo, at the same time, there are people who still firmly believe that. And we've laid out why people could feel that way. Until next time.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
I can't think of anything witty. Sue me. Bye.
Mm-hmm.